Southern Californian band Bleeding Through have proved that heavy metal is still cutting through in the mainstream. Their album, The Truth, debuted at number 48 on the Billboard Top 200 chart in the US in 2006, a higher ranking in the mainstream charts than some might expect from an extreme heavy metal band whose style of music isn't always well received in the commercial marketplace. Billboard magazine even named The Truth one of the most important hard rock albums of 2006. Lead singer and songwriter Brandon Chiappetti said he and the band have been as surprised as anyone about their broader appeal.
We never thought that would ever happen for like a band like us, which is more like, I guess, more metal, extreme sounding band, I guess.
Soon after releasing the album, the band embarked on a 7-show tour of the UK, where they once again outdid themselves by developing a loyal following.
It surprised me, you know, as well as the rest of the people in the band, because when you go overseas, you never know how it's going to be. I mean, you could go to your neighboring state, like we're from California, you can go to Arizona and have a pretty good show, but you never know if you're going to go to the UK and have like a good show. And so from the very first time we were here, we got, you know, welcomed with open arms, and since then it's just gotten a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just seems that people keep on, you know, responding to us like positively, which is more than we could ask for.
Meanwhile, over in Massachusetts, 4-piece rock band Stained were one of the original bands to launch the heavy guitar sound dubbed nu metal. Their first trip to the UK was also a huge success, with crowds moshing along like mad and knowing all the words to all the songs. Like Bleeding Through, Stained was stunned by their popularity with British crowds.
It was incredible. I mean, none of us expected that. I mean, especially never having played here. I mean, it was blew me away. Same thing in the States. I mean, I never expected it to do that in the States either.
Stained got their big break when Limp Bizkit frontman Fred Durst, who has done much to promote the new breed of rock bands, heard them play and swung them a record deal. But his initial reaction to the band was not so favourable.
Well, it was actually the first time we ever met them. We had a chance to open up for them, and Aaron had given those guys a copy of we had done a CD ourselves, and Fred came up to us about 20 minutes before we were supposed to play and kind of started going off on Aaron and myself and tried to have us thrown off the bill and threw the CD across the bar. Thought we were Satan worshippers, and we were able to play, and that's when he, you know, watched the show and liked what we were doing.
The music won Durst over, and Stained were on the road to success. Endorsement from a big name can give a band a kick-start, but Brandon Chiappetti puts Bleeding Through's success down to good old word of mouth.
We definitely don't take for granted that we're very lucky to have, like, you know, good people that like our music, and so for us, we've really been fortunate in many aspects of, you know, getting good fans coming out to our shows and getting like loyal kids and having those kids tell more kids about like the band, and I think the reason why our shows are so popular and then we might sell like a bit of records here and there is because, you know, our fans sell the music for us like perfectly. So
the band formed in 2000 in Orange County, California, an area more associated with sun, surf and the glamour of Hollywood than dark heavy metal angst. Yet Chiappetti says that living in Southern California inspired their music.
Everybody thinks that Southern California is just like, you know, paradise and whatnot, and the land of the beautiful people and all that kind of stuff, but, you know, beneath all that is it's the land of competition. It's, you know, if you're not a certain way, you get condemned for many things, and so, you know, the inspiration for the music is just angst from not fitting in at all ever, and you know, having like your heart stepped on, and, you know, heartbreak does exist in places like Orange County, so I'm sort of like the voice of like people that can't never be heard there, you know, so that's the reason why the lyrics are like they are.
But it's not only heartbreak that the band can relate to. The origin of the band's name was explained in an interview and can be summed up by the poetic explanation that whether black, white, red, brown, yellow, whatever your religious preference, straight or gay, we all bleed the same, and we bleed through this life the same, thus bleeding through. You might be forgiven for thinking that you'd have to be off your head to go strutting around the stage in platform heels, leather shoulder pads and demon makeup, sprouting a ponytail and waggling your tongue. But Gene Simmons of Kiss claims that he has never been drunk or high in his life. Another temptation the Israeli-born bass player has managed to resist is any urge to get hitched.
I've been happily unmarried to the same beautiful girl, Shannon Tweed, who I worship, for 23 years. We've never been divorced, but that's because we've never been married. You see, there's a logic to that. The only thing wrong with marriage is one of the two tends to be a man. Ponder. The biggest cause of divorce is marriage. So there's a very simple idea in my life. They're my rules. I bring home the money. I am the king of the castle. That means I will risk my life, I'll give my life to protect my family. In return for that, they're my rules.
And at 6'2" without the heels, who could argue? Clearly the open relationship seems to be working for Gene, who has bragged that he has bedded more than 1,000 women. He apparently once said in a radio interview, "If you're going to welcome me with open arms, I'm afraid you're going to have to welcome me with open legs."
But last time I checked, the only one who ever had the right to ask me where I'm going gave me birth, my beloved mother. In return for giving me life, she's allowed to torture me until the day I die. That's a good trade. You give me life, you can torture me. No one else has that right.
After clocking the stratospheric success of the Osbournes, Gene decided the viewing public would benefit from such pearls of wisdom by opening the door to his own private life in Family Jewels. Unlike Ozzy, who never seemed to know what day it was, Gene ruled his roost with a rod of iron.
My kids, Sophie, who's 5'10", 14 years old, Nick, who's 6'7" and 17 years old, are both straight-A students, charming human beings who don't smoke, don't drink, don't get high, just like Dad. The reason they behave and do well in school is you're not allowed not to. That means good rules, discipline. Simple idea. Remember when you were growing up, wait until your father gets home? That's a good idea. Fear your father, love your mother.
He took the same stand over tactics and unabashed approach to self-promotion to his guest appearance on the celebrity version of Donald Trump's series The Apprentice.
I'm in the Gene Simmons business, the way he's in the Donald Trump business. Charity is important. We have to put that first, but we also have our Gene Simmons Family Jewels crew here filming this. So we also shill for all sorts of things, and everything helps everything, the top spin of it. You want to be associated with the top grade A product.
Associating himself with the top grade A product has never been a problem for Gene, who never misses an opportunity to talk up the band he formed with Paul Stanley back in 1972.
You wanted the best, you got the best, the hottest band in the world. You know who.
Despite all the talk, Kiss have still yet to be nominated for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a fact that has so incensed the band's fans that around 200 of them showed up for a protest rally outside the hall in August 2006. But the snub has clearly failed to put a dent in Gene Simmons' plans for media saturation. As well as warming up for a fourth series of Family Jewels, he's also been starring in British reality show Rock School, in which he's charged with the task of turning a class of schoolchildren into a fully fledged rock band. And while he may wield absolute power over his own kids, one young contender was less than impressed by his teaching approach.
I mean, I knew who he was. It was quite cool, but a lot of the other people were just like, "Who the hell do you think you are? You come in our class and we don't even know who you are, and you're trying to be all hard." But he's really in your face, but he's all right.
Since getting together in 1999, Linkin Park have sold 50 million albums and won 2 Grammy Awards with their constantly evolving fusion of metal and rap. Their debut album, Hybrid Theory, sold 10 million copies in the US alone and peaked at number 2 on the Billboard 200 chart.
When we were getting started, because of the easy access to the fans and their easy access to what we were doing, people who had never heard of us before could simply go online and check it out. And we put music online for free for people to get familiar with the band.
Since then, the Californian rockers have kept fans guessing by constantly changing direction and introducing new sounds.
When we first started the band, we One of our goals was to not categorize what we're doing, but more to try to incorporate different styles of music, and that's something that we continually try to do.
They've also kept busy with their own individual side projects and ambitious new ventures. In 2003, after the release of their second album, Meteora, they put out a live performance DVD to be shown in cinemas across the US.
We never expected to take it this far, but since we've gotten here, it's been like a lot of fun to put this together and present it in a way that is unique and something different for people to, kind of see us in a new light.
We like the little venues because they're nice and you have the intimacy with your fans, and the big ones are great because of the energy that and the volume of the big shows, and that's kind of what you'll see in live in Texas.
In 2004, they joined forces with hip-hop writer-producer Jay-Z to release an album of mashups called Collision Course.
We've worked with other hip-hop artists and other producers and stuff in the past, but we've been really select on which ones we work with because we know, which styles will work with ours. We don't want to we can go tour with anybody, but you can't work with anybody in the studio. It's got to be right.
The project involved hiding away in the studio for 4 days to record 6 collaborations in which 2 different songs are combined on one track.
Mashups have just been, hitting the streets a little bit harder because the line between rock and hip hop has been, being crossed for quite some time now. And I think that, along with mixtapes and stuff, which has always been a big part of hip hop, on the street level, putting those 2 things together just kind of seemed natural.
The same year, they broke more new ground with a Japanese-style anime video to their single Breaking the Habit.
Doing videos now, it's always a challenge to come up with something different each time, and this opportunity came up and we're like, okay, let's do it, This is going to be really cool, and we know the fans are going to dig it.
Throughout 2005, they poured their efforts and energies into numerous charity events, as well as performing at gigs to raise money for victims of the tsunami and Hurricane Katrina. They set up their own charity.
We have an organization called Music for Relief. Music for Relief started after the tsunamis in South Asia, and now we've expanded that. Rather than just doing relief efforts after a natural disaster, we've also started incorporating some green efforts, many different ways, one of which is donating, actually planting trees for every ticket sold to our concert.
They spent a massive 14 months working on their next album, Minutes to Midnight, which sold 600,000 copies in its first week, topping the Billboard chart. Robert Bartley Cummings, aka Rob Zombie, first rose to notoriety as the leader of 80s US metal band White Zombie. After releasing 2 platinum-selling albums, they broke up and Rob embarked on a solo recording career with Hellbilly Deluxe, but he's since become much better known for his efforts as a writer and director of horror movies. In 2003, he cast his wife, Sherry Moon Zombie, in his debut effort, House of a Thousand Corpses, which went on to be a surprise hit. 2 years later, he and Sherry were out talking up the charms of their next gorefest, The Devil's Rejects, which revisited the murderous Firefly family who'd wreaked such havoc in the first film.
It's a movie that hasn't been seen in a theater in a long time, in the sense that, it has a lot of what is, to me, was spectacular about the 70s, when you could go see very stark, gritty, real movies where you didn't feel that they had been completely homogenized and made by committee from a studio.
Rob admitted he was out to shake audiences up.
I mean, I remember as a kid going to movies, be like, every time I go to the movies, I feel like, oh my God, I've never seen that before, as opposed to now, not just me, but the general public always has that feeling of like, yep, seen that before, except it was called that last time, and I'm, so I think that for a whole generation of people that have never, it's going to be pretty shocking for them.
One of the scenes in The Devil's Rejects was so shocking, even one of the actors had to walk out.
Doing a disturbing scene in a movie, of course, you have to do it 8 times because there's different angles or different takes, or, you have to move the cameras around. So, after about the second time of doing that scene with Priscilla, I walked out the set. I was really feeling bad about it. And, it was kind of, squeezing my guts. And there was Rob standing off the set, and I just said to him, I said, I'm feeling bad about this.
But the director wasn't having any of it.
And that's when he looked at me and said, art is not safe. And that freaked me out. And that was actually the greatest thing he could have said to me, because it reminded me, this is nothing personal, this is what we're doing. We're depicting this, we're not promoting it. And, that really helped me out. That kind of got me through, a lot of those scenes.
Rob didn't go any easier on his wife.
I don't get any special favors because I'm his wife. He treats each actor on an individual basis because every actor has a different personality and they're different to work with, so you have to talk to them differently to get them to go other places. You might be able to explain how you treat other actors.
Yeah, no, a director's job is to completely manipulate the actors without them knowing it, and it takes a different sort of manipulation for each person.
And if anyone knows how to manipulate me, it's Rob.
The manipulation began all over again 2 years later when Rob was approached by the Weinstein Company to direct a remake of 1978 slasher classic Halloween. His initial reaction was to say no.
Well, because I think remakes are pointless. If a film is great, why remake it? If you're going to remake it, you have to make it completely different because it has to be its own experience.
And that's what he did.
Basically, the first 2/3 of the film are 100% different. It's young Michael Myers, his life, leading up to the night he commits murder, and then second part of the film is young Michael Myers growing into an adult, locked away in the sanitarium. And then, the last third of the movie, which is still different, is the only time we see familiar pieces of John Carpenter's movie. So, probably about 80% of the movie is totally different.
Rob's version starred Malcolm McDowell, Tyler Mane, and of course, Sherry Moonzombie.
I play Deborah Myers, which is Michael Myers' mother, and we start when Michael Myers is a child. And Rob wanted to humanize adult Michael Myers. So by starting with Michael as a child, then when we jump to Michael Myers as an adult, you can see the child, behind the mask, the child's face. So he did a great job of humanizing Michael Myers.
He also did a great job at the box office. In February 2008, hundreds of Moroccan heavy metal fans met for their biggest festival in the North African country since a group of hard rock enthusiasts were jailed 5 years ago for what the authorities termed Satanism. Braving the scorn of fundamental Islamists and heavy rain, young men in black jeans and jackets, goatee beards and dreadlocks trudged to a cavernous concert hall in Sidi Qassem, a market town in a farming region of northern Morocco. As the first group, Hammerhead, began tuning up, a small Fiat drew up outside the hall and 2 police officers stepped out. This time, they were thankfully only there to check the security arrangements. Many of the musicians agree it's an uphill struggle being a hard rocker in a Muslim country, where the king wields paramount power. I noticed that the state policy is to encourage youngsters to express their talents. Some bands succeeded in having an audience either thanks to the local radios that play this kind of music, or because these bands managed to make a name for themselves. In 2003, 11 young Moroccans were convicted for distributing material which, quote, makes people listen with bad intent to songs which contravene good morals or incite debauchery, unquote.
They thought that we used to play with Satans and those kind of stuff. But recently they changed their behaviors because they made sure that we just play music, we have fun.
The humid air was thick with smoke at the concert. Moroccan conservative politicians regularly rail against music concerts for supposedly encouraging alcoholism, drugs, and mixing of the sexes. While drinking is permitted in Morocco, it tends to be discreet. The crowd near the stage was overwhelmingly male, but a smattering of young women also braved the mosh pit. Over in Egypt, the young people with attitude and a taste for heavy metal music have also found out the hard way that traditional Egyptian society may not be ready to accept black leather, skull tattoos, or worse, supposed satanic rituals.
People have the wrong impression about us, that we're druggies and we believe in Satan. Well, it's not true.
Government newspapers offer up daily doses on how the so-called Satanists sacrifice cats, called up the devil on the Ouija board, and took part in group sex. Reports have claimed that heavy metal fans performed satanic rituals at Cairo's Commonwealth Cemetery and at the deserted mansion of Baron Edouard Empain in the posh suburb of Heliopolis. Interestingly, the Grand Sheikh takes a more lenient line.
بالنسبة لهؤلاء الشباب أنا وجهة نظري أن
As for these youth, my point of view is that parents are at least 70% responsible for what happened, and the rest of the responsibility lies on the community, the school, the university, the Azhar, and the media.
لكن على أي حال رحمة الله واسعة.
But anyway, God is merciful, and if they find people to put them on the right path, give them proper physical, social and religious education, I believe that they will return to their senses and to the path of righteousness. Some of the heavy metal fans, especially those who've organised rock concerts at public places in Cairo over the last few years, are in police custody.
The authorities, they think of like all people who listen to heavy metal or rock, heavy rock, are Satanism. They worship the devil. They gathered everybody, like almost everybody who listens to heavy metal. There's like a few who do really worship the devil. It's very, very few. Heavy metal is not devil worshipping. It's a sort of music.
But the fans themselves say that music is nothing more than a healthy outlet for their youthful enthusiasm.
Makes you feel fresh. It's crazy. It's nice.
Although the Grand Sheikh doesn't think the fans of heavy metal are Satanists, he does believe that they have strayed from religious values and need to be rehabilitated back into traditional society.